This is the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm Howard Jacobson of plantyourself.com and the Big Change Program with Josh Lajani. This podcast is part of my mission to help you live a clean and classy life. Two bits of business before we get to today's show. First, you can still grab the Boomeritis BS report at plantyourself.com/boomeritis if you or anyone you know is in their 50s or 60s or beyond and is worried about continuing to work out and exercise and play hard and exert and all that because all the doctors are telling you you got to slow down. Well, largely BS. So you can check out the Boomeritis BS report at plantyourself.com/boomeritis. The second order of business is money. And executive summary, if you are not a patron of the podcast and you have the spare cash and making a monthly contribution isn't going to put you on the edge of disaster, it would be great if you get weekly value from this show for you to give back. And here's the thing, the economics of podcasting is changing rapidly, but basically most of the podcasters I know make their money through advertising. Either advertising on their sites or having sponsors for each show. A lot of podcasts that I listen to have 5 or even 10 minutes of ads at the beginning or the middle or the end. And I totally get it, and that is a totally valid way to make money. The trouble is, with this podcast, I often present controversial material, people who are out of the mainstream of the medical and psychological and nutritional camps. And therefore, a lot of the sponsorship that I could get, I'm worried would make me compromise a little bit, maybe in ways that I would totally justify and maybe in ways that you wouldn't even notice. But if I'm sponsored by a food company or even something like Vitamix, and then I start reading this evidence that maybe smoothies aren't such a great thing, and I don't want to have that person on the air because of Vitamix, I don't even know what it is. But I don't want to have advertising. I don't want to have affiliate deals with the people I bring on the show because then I'm just looking for the people who can bring me the most money. I get approached now roughly 2-3 times a week by people pitching themselves as guests on the show. And a couple of them have been really interesting from a growth of the podcast perspective. One is a guy who founded a company that I guess does sort of sports nutrition and training protocols for people who want to build muscle. And they've got like 1 million followers on Instabook or Facegram or something, and, you know, huge numbers and lots of followers. And we didn't have to talk about the fact that they're really into animal-based nutrition. We could have just stuck to, you know, push-ups and pull-ups and stuff like that. And it would have been a fine interview. And I probably would have doubled my subscriber base. About a month and a half ago, I got pitched by a famous doctor, author, someone whose name you'd recognize, who is mostly, you know, in favor of sort of the plant-based idea, but he promotes fish oil, and he's got a bunch of other things that are a little iffy. And the person who contacted me on his behalf was from an industry, was a rep for an industry that he's behind. And it just didn't feel right. And again, this was going to be a huge boost. This would have given me 10, 20,000 more subscribers possibly. And I said no to both of those because they didn't feel like it was going to be the best thing for the show and for you, the listener. So that leaves me with one way of getting money for the podcast for the 10 to 15 hours I put in every single week. And that is getting it directly from you, directly from the listeners. So, you know, you're the only ones who can reward me, and you're the only ones who can fire me. If enough of you decide you don't want to listen anymore and my numbers start dropping, then I'll know it's time to stop podcasting. In the meantime, I would love for this podcast to be a sustainable endeavor for me. And the two ways I make money off of it are people who find out about me and then hire me as a coach or sign up for one of my programs. And that's awesome. And that's a huge help. However, if that's not you, if you don't need my help and you just enjoy the podcast, then I want to ask you to contribute a little something, even if it's just $1 a month, which comes to about 25 cents an episode. That makes a difference. Right now on Patreon, I'm getting $136 a month. And it's beautiful to see those names, and it's beautiful to know I'm getting that support. But I really need a lot more in order to make this podcast something that I can sustain over time and continue to make better, to have better sound quality, to be able to travel to speak to guests, to be able to be face-to-face, and to be able to expand my promotion so that more people in the world can hear this valuable message. So if you're able, if it's not going to be a hardship, please go to plantyourself.com, click on the Patreon link, and make a statement that you value this type of content that comes to you free of any sort of commercial pressure, coercion, or interference. Thanks a lot. Now, today's episode features Alon Civier. Alon is the customer experience manager at a company called Home Biogas. And what they do is they allow you to make biogas at home. And their mission is not so much to help us in the West, but to spread this technology around the world, especially in places, rural Africa and other places where cooking with wood is environmentally damaging and bad for health and expensive. And it's kind of a magical thing. We got a home biogas unit last year as a very generous gift from a friend of mine who had supported their efforts on Kickstarter. And I put together the unit, and it's just amazing. I put in kitchen scraps and water, and I get out an incredibly rich liquid fertilizer for my garden and methane that I can then hook up to a stove and cook my food with. And in terms of reducing methane emissions from compost and animal manure, and in terms of making people's lives better, this is a game changer of an innovation. So I was very happy to get Alon on the podcast to talk about what they're up to and what biogas is and the benefits of it and all that. Again, if you go to homebiogas.com and you buy your own, I get absolutely zero money for that. This is not a paid commercial. It's just me really excited about an environmental technology that I think has the potential to change a lot of lives around the world. The recording quality for this podcast is good. However, Alon has quite a thick accent. So when he says methane, he's talking about methane. And I think the rest of the stuff you'll probably figure out as it goes. So without further ado, Alon Civier, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're here to talk about a new technology. It's really kind of an old technology that you've given a new spin to. It's home biogas. And before we get into it, can you just talk a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to our listeners, and tell them, your sort of your journey to where you are now.
Okay, so my name is Alon Civier. At Home Biogas, I'm the customer experience manager. I'm in charge of customer support. Originally, my profession is I'm an information systems engineer, and I have an MBA. I used to work in the high-tech industry in a company named Amdocs. And I got in love, with sustainability and environment. So about 2 years ago, I decided that I leave the high-tech world and I seek for new opportunities in other worlds, mainly in the sustainability world. So I worked a bit in, I tried to start one startup of myself about efficient driving. I volunteered in a cooperative that worked on wind turbines. Then I worked in guiding people on how to separate wet waste from dry waste, organic waste. And from here and there, I got to on biogas after I bought one system for myself. And when I took it, I asked whether they need more people, and they told me yes. And it was a good fit because we needed somebody that knows, a bit the computer world, and also is a fan of environment and sustainability. And since there, I'm at Home Biogas for the last 8 months.
Great. So you started out as a customer, and then you sort of
Exactly.
made your way into the world of the company itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk. I want to talk about the home biogas unit, but first can we just talk about the basic technology, because this has been around. I mean, it's a biological system. Can you talk about like what is biogas?
Okay. For treating organic waste, we actually have two methods. One of them is aerobic digestion, and the other one is anaerobic digestion. Aerobic digestion is what we all know, which is compost. That means it's putting organic waste, that has outside that has oxygen, and put dry leaves on it, and then there is like a process where compost is created. The other way to treat organic waste is without oxygen, which is anaerobic digestion. In this process, we actually take the organic waste, we put it in water with bacteria, bacteria from animal manure, and the bacteria digest the organic waste and produce biogas, which is actually methane. And then this methane can be used for cooking. So this is actually the technology which is used for biogas.
Okay, so so it creates the methane, and so the food scraps that you put into the unit, it's sitting in a bladder or a tank of water, and the bacteria go to work and create a gas that you can use for cooking, the same way you'd use propane or natural gas or anything else. That's sort of the basics, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the process, biogas is created. Biogas is another type of gas in addition to natural gas and LPG. The difference between the gases is LPG is very concentrated, natural gas less, and biogas even a little bit less. And therefore, we usually needs different stoves to operate.
Okay. So you were interested in sustainability and the environment. What about this technology appeals to you? What makes this sustainable? I hear bad things about methane, right? That it's a greenhouse gas. It's very, very concentrated. So help me understand how this is actually a good thing for the environment.
Okay, so the major problem with organic waste is we throw it to the garbage, then it's going to it's being thrown somewhere, okay, in a pit or latrine, and then over there with time it releases methane, okay. It's like a fermentation process that happens to organic waste, releases methane, which goes up to the air, and this gas contributes much more than CO2 to the greenhouse effect. We say like about 12% of the greenhouse effects is due to methane releasing from garbage, from organic waste. Now we actually take this methane, which is released, we let it release inside of our system, and we use this gas instead of releasing it to the atmosphere. So in this way, we help the world because we don't contribute to the greenhouse effect, which causes temperatures to go up. Now, additionally, one of the things about sustainability, it's also another thing which I learned and studied, it's permaculture, which is a permanent agriculture method. And not only agriculture, where you use everything in some ways. Like with organic waste, we put it inside of our system. It creates a gas which we can cook with, and it also creates a fertilizer from the other side of the system, which we can grow food with. After we grow food and after we cook, we again have organic waste and we again put it in the system. So it's like a circular process, okay, where we don't where we don't throw things to the garbage. Everything stays inside of the system. So this is what home biogas has to contribute to environment and to sustainability.
So when you have a system where there's a waste product at the end that has to be stored somewhere, that's inherently unsustainable, right? No matter how much you have coming in, at some point, if it's not being reused, it's a linear system, and what you've created is a circular system where literally it can keep going forever because there's no outputs that aren't put back into the system. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's also like, we have recycling. Many places in our world we use recycling, and sometimes people think that recycling is, this is being green. But usually for recycling, and some places they even create energy from gasification, things like that. So you need to use a lot of energy in order to recycle. So when you use the home biogas, it's not working on electricity. It's all biological. You don't put energy in order for the process to happen. And this is what is unique about it. Okay, most of the things people do in the Western world, they need energy in order to reuse the material.
You have this technology that you kind of discovered, and you've created. What's the? And I know you had a Kickstarter campaign, and you're trying to put this out into the world, into rural communities, into poor areas. What's the benefit, or what's the benefit to a community to start doing this instead of just, if they have some cows or goats, to just sort of let this put the manure out onto the field, or just put it into pits and let it rot? Why would a community benefit from having some of these units?
Okay, first of all, the organic waste, the manure or the regular organic waste, when you put it outside, it creates a bad smell. Okay, it's a bad sanitization. So in places where they don't pick up the waste, it's a hazard near the house. That's first of all. So the system gives a solution that you can throw the waste inside. The second thing is about what we said about methane. That if we throw it away and not in our house, it creates it helps, like, it creates gases that affect that help the greenhouse effect. And the last thing is that when we use regular gas for cooking, which is usually LPG or natural gas, it's actually like using oil, okay? Because it's something which we found in the ground that was created millions and billions years ago, and we use it once and it disappears. And biogas, on the other hand, instead of using these resources that we need them for a lot of other stuff, and hopefully we will not need to use them because we'll find replacements. So biogas uses what we eat and stuff we use in order to create gas, so we don't use unrenewable resources. So it helps you in treating your waste, denying sanitization problems near your house, using again the waste for a gas instead of using LPG or natural gas. And another thing is the fertilizer. It also gives you fertilizer that you can use for your garden. And also fertilizers are usually made from unrenewable resources. So it has a lot of benefits, a biogas system for your house and for your living.
So let's talk about the fertilizer, because so we've switched. We now take our kitchen waste and we put it in our home biogas unit, whereas before we had a compost pile and we would walk the kitchen waste to the compost pile, and after 18 or 24 months we would have good compost. Or if I decided to do like turning it every 3 days, we could get it in a month and a half. So now I'm taking all this food waste and putting it into home biogas, and out comes a liquid. So what's in the liquid, and how is it different from the compost that would take me, 1.5 months to 2 years to make?
Okay. So first of all, you pointed out one thing which I haven't talked about, which is when we use aerobic digestion compost, it takes, as you said, 1.5 months to 3 months, sometimes even more, depends on the weather, in order to create compost that I can use. Now with organic waste, I put it today, tomorrow I have gas. So it's very fast till I get something from my waste. Now the fertilizer itself, it's not like compost, which compost is, it's good. It's a good material for your garden that you can put once in every few months and help your plants. But it's more like a liquid fertilizer that people put all the time to their gardens in order to improve their in order to improve what they grow. So every day or two we take the fertilizer, we put it 1 to 5 with water, and we just put it on our garden, and it gives a lot of minerals to the garden. Why it gives minerals? Because the liquid that comes out of the system is actually composed from all the minerals that come from the food. Okay, food have minerals. So all of these are going to our garden. That's the reason it's a nice fertilizer that can help our garden. But it's a bit different than compost.
Uh-huh. And so one thing that concerned me is, so I started out with 100 pounds of cow manure and then water to fill it up. And should I be worried that the liquid fertilizer coming out is going to have pathogens in it that I shouldn't be putting on food crops?
No, you don't need to be worried. First of all, because it comes from animal manure, so animal manure doesn't have pathogens that can harm human beings. And additionally, we have a chloran tablet that is installed on the exit of the fertilizer, which kills any pathogens if something is left, and then we can use the fertilizer with no problem.
Gotcha. Have you run any experiments or comparing what growing with or without this liquid fertilizer?
Yeah, we run experiments in our company and also our customers. We use it all the time. So the fertilizer really helps the garden. It's not that you use only fertilizer. It's like something you add to your garden. It just helps the plants grow better. That's all. It's not that without it nothing will grow, and with that everything will grow. It's just something that helps your garden. It's the same like a regular liquid fertilizer, which if you don't put, so your plants will grow, but will grow slower, and with the fertilizer will grow faster. But we did a lot of experiments in our offices, and if you want, I can send you some pictures of what we.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So we have the unit in our backyard, and we've got the long yellow hose for gas. Now we just hook it up to like a Coleman stove, it's a propane stove, and it seems to work. But this isn't something that you can replace your kitchen at home, is it? Or like for whom is this practical to really start replacing your use of fossil fuels with biogas?
So most of our customers use the gas of the system at their own kitchen. The gas is sufficient for up to 2 burners, and because the system works on organic waste, so we have to have some backup to the system, as we don't have organic waste all the time. So, for example, at my house, where I have the system, and our customers as well, I use about 90% of my gas is coming from the biogas, and the rest from a regular gas stove. Now, the stove you need to use, it can be either LPG stove converted to biogas, which is just replacing the nozzle. It's pretty similar to what we do with natural gas in comparison to LPG. And and what we recommend our customers is either to, usually you have like 4 burners at your kitchen. So you can put 2 of gas, regular gas, and 2 of biogas, or 2 of electricity and 2 of biogas, and so on. Or if you want a separate one, you can put like on your table a tabletop stove with 1 or 2 flames. We also supply our customers, if required, the biogas stoves, which are compatible for biogas, where you don't need to convert them. This ones usually comes from China, because as I said before, this is where the biogas is really common, there and in India. So those are the options of connecting the stove and using it.
Sure. Now you also, I think, we're raising money to either donate some or sell them cheaply around the world. Is that, am I right about that?
We have the systems. We sell most of the systems to the Western world, and we have also a lot of systems in Africa, mostly. We participated in some projects of organizations that contributed systems in large scale to rural places. Because as you can understand from the benefits of the system, in rural places when the waste is not picked up, and where they don't have fertilizer, and where they have sanitization problem, and where gas can't be reached, they have a great value. So we have people that donated money in order for us to send systems to rural places. We have organizations and so on. And yes, one of our goals is to go to Africa, to more and more places. And we started that in recent years.
Mm-hmm. So where in Africa would somebody go to see, the most robust uses of your system?
In Africa, the most robust is actually in Rwanda, I think. But in Africa, we have it in several places. We just we send systems to Kenya that Kenya and Tanzania, which supposed to be sold to customers by distributors. So we have in different places in Africa, but not yet in a very large scale. The big projects we did was one in the Palestinian Authority near Israel, and one in the south of Israel. That was for we saw like 100 of systems for rural areas of Bedouins live in the desert. This was with the European Union and the Paris Peace Center from Israel. We had two big projects as that.
Gotcha. Now, one thing that I imagine is, I spent a year in Africa and in South Africa, and because of all the sort of political and economic changes that had occurred, the rural Zulu population near which we lived, they had stopped gardening and farming, right? They had jobs working either as laborers or in large monocrop fields, and they had villages which was just sort of sand and dust and dirt and garbage, and there was no gardens. And I'm wondering if you have a unit that every time you put in your garbage and you add some water to it, fertilizer comes out, does that kind of encourage people to start keeping a local garden that can help them with their own food security?
Yes, actually in Africa and in India, the liquid fertilizer sometimes is even more important than the gas itself. So it's really important to them because you have a lot of little farms and people that grow some in their houses. So yes, liquid fertilizers is used for these places, and it's really important as they can't afford, buying liquid fertilizer at the store, usually for high prices.
So as you were, I know you joined the company not at the very beginning, but I don't know if you have a sense of what were the design problems that you had to solve to create a unit that could go where to very rural, remote places where there wasn't a lot of infrastructure. What were the engineers and designers thinking about when they first set out to create a modern system to do this biological process?
So there were several things that were solved over time. One of them is our system today is a DIY, that means do it yourself. So we can just ship it everywhere and people can install it themselves. Okay, they don't need some company to come and do it for them. Other things are, it's also, you put it on the ground. You don't need to make a hole in the ground in order to put the system. So you don't, it's really easy to put it. That was also a problem. I know there was problem with leaks. Many systems of biogas have a lot of leaks, and our system is made from materials which deny these leaks. Okay, pretty good. Another problem, in order to make it DIY, we had to make it very small. Okay, that can fit a box and from specific materials. So that was also during the time, like at the start, we didn't have systems that we can ship very far, and now we can ship it everywhere. Also, to find the right capacity of gas which suits the family was also an issue that we did some changes, and after some models, we got to our model, which was sold pretty nicely around the world.
Mm. One of the things I found very elegant is that you have this big water bladder, but then you also have an empty bladder that collects the gas right on top of that. And if you want the gas to come out, it has to be under pressure. And I love that you included these empty bags that I had to fill with sand. Figuring, in most parts of the world, there's sand or dirt, so that you didn't have to include that in the shipping weight, and that anyone could use this local material. I really thought that was an elegant solution.
Yeah, one of the things which I forget to say in your last question is also one of the problems biogas systems have is that the pressure is not stable of the system. Now, what you described, it's also a mechanism to create pressure, because in regular gas and also in biogas systems, you have to create pressure on the gas so it will flow to the stove. So we wanted to create pressure in a mechanical way, right? Not with electricity, with compressors. So we use this, what you described, it's blanket full of sand, which sits on the tank gas and actually gives it a pressure which allow it to go to the stove. And also, the way they are designed, they keep the gas pressure stable, which is a big advantage of the system.
Right. So you've been putting these out into the world for a year or so now?
Yeah, the last model. We have models before, but the last model that we ship ever, which is do-it-yourself, it's almost a year since the first system we shipped out.
Mm-hmm. So I know from putting it together and having questions that I reach out via Facebook or email and I get a very rapid response. So I'm imagining that you're very much in touch with your customers and your beta users. What have you learned from people like me in the West who just have a unit and we're using it, and from rural communities and the projects that you're running in Africa that are helping to help you refine and create new versions?
Okay, we learned that the end user needs a good solution for the stove, okay, for the stove users. So we learned which stoves we can supply to him and from where. We brought biogas stoves from China, and we found in different countries stoves that can match the system. We also found out that people don't always read all of the instructions of the system. And because of that, just lately we sent some, like the 10 commandments of the system, the must-knows of the system that people should put on their fridge, just to know what they should do and how they treat the system. I found out also that it's very important to people that they can contact us and they can talk with us and to have our help when necessary, and also things that they would have wanted the system to do. Okay, that they explained us. Okay, more than like if some people from some kinds need more gas, some people wants to connect it to different devices, things like that. So we discover more about our market with the people, with their help, and we give them all the support they need along the way.
So there's something about the unit that it feels a little bit more communal than just me having a pipe into my home. And I'm wondering if if you're talking about kind of community gardens, people, really, especially in some of these very impoverished, neglected African communities, where all of a sudden there's this sense of a little bit of pride and that they're creating something that they can use themselves. I'm wondering if you've seen any sort of social effects of communities and just households using the home biogas system compared to the way they were before.
I can tell you that I will give 2 examples. Like in the Western world, I mostly found people that got like a bit of somebody called this system the answer, like it's like give him a nickname, gave him a nickname to the system. So people get a bit attached to this, and it's like it gives you pride that at your own home you're actually producing gas. It's not something that people are used to. They are used to buy gas from somewhere that it comes on a big truck, and suddenly they get pride on their own home that they treat their own waste and they create their own gas and they garden and they put the fertilizer on their garden. They feel that like they do something special. Even my wife, when she cooks, I told her yesterday, what do you feel when you cook on biogas and not on LPG? So she tells me, it's just a different feeling, I feel proud that I'm doing it at my home. And now, and I will give one example I can tell you about the Palestinian Authority. We go to places where people are pretty rural and they don't have the resources for a good gas. And those systems, it's became, for them, it's like a miracle. They have something. Suddenly they have gas. They don't need to bring wood to put on fire. They have a solution for all this waste that giving them bad smell outside because they don't have nowhere to throw it. So for them, it's like life-saving. And for people in the Western world, it's like, it's opening for them. It's opening their eyes, mainly. And gives them a good feeling. And also for their families and for your kids. Like my son is 2 years old and he already knows what is biogas, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that issue of the wood, that if you don't have gas, of course you're either going to burn the cow patties themselves or you're going to go and collect wood. And there's a lot of problems with people in rural areas collecting and burning wood, isn't there?
Yeah, actually using wood for your cooking, it's actually pretty dangerous because of the smoke. So there is a lot of people are even dying from too much smoke inside of their houses. So for them, it's really life-saving, a system like that can be. And of course, think about it, the first time I've seen something about biogas was on a TEDx event, that a group of students showed a project in Africa, in Namibia, I think, and they saw that they put them biogas system, and the same people that before that, they walked like 2 hours in order to bring wood. So they just, made it on the animal manure of their animals. So they saved about 2 hours of going to bring wood each time. So just think about how it changed their life. And of course, they have a solution for all the animal manure they had there, which wasn't so good, for what they breed along the day. So, it's pretty amazing what a biogas system can give people, mainly in the rural world.
Right. And also I'm thinking like, I grew up in a society in which everything was linear. You bought it from the outside, you used it up, and then the waste products had to be carted away. And when I discovered permaculture, it really blew me away. It was a totally different way of thinking about the world. It got me interested in gardening. It got me interested in different forms of recycling, of sort of elegant design. I'm wondering if when people get this unit and they haven't had any of these thoughts, if it kind of changes their mindset just because it's a different model of how we interact with our environment.
I would tell you that most of our clients are coming from the green world, okay? So we usually know a bit about permaculture, but not all of them. And it is, it's mind-blowing for people like that. When you tell it to people, they are quite amazed. Even people of permaculture, compost everybody knows, and gray water everybody knows, and solar panels everybody knows and can get. But when you talk about biogas, it's suddenly something quite unique for people. Because usually, as you said about compost, it takes a lot of time till you see the value of what you put in the compost heap. But in biogas, it's pretty immediate. From day to day you see it. So it's quite of mind blowing to people. We are quite amazed. It's something that exists for 100 years, but in the Western world, most of the people don't know it. And also in the developed world, even for it's pretty common, still a lot of people don't have it, and when they have it, it's quite a miracle. So, yes, biogas is something that changes life for people.
Now, one of the things that I discovered from having this unit is that it slows down or stops in cold weather, right?
Yeah.
So obviously it would be, it's a huge benefit in places that don't have winters, a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, for example. But for someone who lives in a temperate climate where you're going to have a cool or cold winter, do you stop using it? Do you stop feeding the system until it heats up? How do you sort of know? Because you can't really look inside and see what's going on. So how do you tell people to sort of interact with their systems when they're not sure if it's cooking or not?
Okay, so as I said, it's a biological process, so it does have a limit of temperature that under 20 Celsius and 68 Fahrenheit, the system doesn't work as it's supposed to be in, above 20. What we do in these times of year is we put a water heater like of an aquarium water heater, which works on electricity, which helps the system to stay warm and still produce gas. Now, of course, that when I connect an electrical heater, I use electricity. So I use energy to create energy. But it can give me, it can give me the opportunity to have it working all over the year. And we always compare it, to people that use, how do I say it? Just a second. People that use a water heater based on sun, okay, that creates hot water in their houses.
Yeah.
So when you don't have sun, what you do? You turn on the electricity heater, right, to create your hot water.
Right.
So if you look at it like you have hot water, you have gas, in a biological process. So you say, okay. So for 2-3 months of the year, depends where you live, of course. But usually our customers are in places which are warmer. So for this months of the year, I will use this electricity heater. And if I choose not to, so I just don't use the system, use my backup system, and start to use it again when summer comes. The good thing about the system that even if you don't use it for half a year, you can come after half a year. You just need to start feeding it. You start with half of the maximal amount for 2 weeks, and afterwards you can continue to get gas normally. So, we have a solution for that, but of course it doesn't work in each temperature.
Right. So what are your plans for the coming year in terms of reaching out to Western consumers and doing more permaculture projects around the world?
So all the time we increase the places that we get to. Like I can tell you that till now we sold systems to about 60 countries over the world. Okay. About Africa, our plan is, to work with distributors to get to more and more countries. We started to work with some distributors, and all the time we find new ones to work in new countries. About India, it's also something like that. We look for local partners to work with in order to spread our systems over there. And over the Western world, which, it's a bit different because it's a lot about internet and a lot about new technology. So we look to sell it in more channels, okay? Maybe it will be on Amazon, maybe it will be in other big internet sites. Maybe we'll sell it for big stores. We have few directions to go forward. Because these days we sell the systems in our website on biogas.com, and people also can call us and buy it, through a sales representative. So this is our directions in order to spread it around the world. Another thing is we work with a lot of permaculture farms in the US and other places where farms are buying systems from us, and they kind of resell our systems to people as well. So we have a few directions to go forward, how to sell our systems.
Great. So for someone who's listening to this right now and they want to find out more and get in touch and see the system, and I remember there's a really fun video, like a time-lapse video about how to set up the system. Where do people go right now to learn more?
Okay, so to learn more, please go to www.onbiogas.com. Over there you have all of the necessary information. You have a knowledge center, you have answers, frequently asked questions, you have a shop. You can also send mail to us at info or support at onbiogas.com for additional information. So that's the way to reach us.
Great. So that's Home Biogas, HOMEBIOGAS.com.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, Alon, it's been great talking to you. I'm a happy user of the system. It's so cool. The other day after the winter, we turned on the hose and put a match to it, and we actually saw a flame come out, and we were just thrilled like little children. I know it works. I know it works, but it's still kind of miraculous that it works. So thank you, and give our regards to all the engineers, everyone who's still in the strategy meeting, and thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Plant Yourself podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about the Big Change Program, led by me and Josh Lajani, visit bigchangeprogram.com. And be sure to check out the show notes for today's episode with links to everything we talked about at plantyourself.com/216. If you're new to the show, you can catch up on 215 archived episodes over at plantyourself.com. If you get the podcast but not the Big Change Bulldog, you can sign up and get the Boomeritis BS report, one more week for that, at plantyourself.com/boomeritis. All right, it's time for the thanks. So big thanks to, and I got to say, I think there's too many names here to do it all in one breath, but I'll do the best I can. To Plant Yourself podcast patrons: Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Anthony Disson, Brittany Porter, Dominic Marrow, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Kopp, Rachel Behrens, Christine Nielsen, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Volkanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elizabeth Heldman, Victoria Dolman, Ovalia Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Andrew, Josina, Julianne Rowland, Stu Dolnick, Sarah Durkis, Rams Circus, Kelly Cameron, Wayne Pedersen, Leanne Peterson, Sanders Selby. Oh, I got to do Janet better than that. Another breath. Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzak, Jeanette Benham, Gila Lacerte, David Donahue, Blair Seibert, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carolyn Argentati, Jody Friesner, Ruth Ann Funderburk, Michelle Rosen, Michael Warbeck for your generous support of the podcast. And thanks, of course, to Will Ridenauer, musician extraordinaire, for allowing me to use his beautiful song, Sabali Dawn, Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at willridenauer.com. If you would like to support the show, you can share this and other episodes on social media. You can write that review on iTunes. Man, that helps a lot. And you can, as I said earlier, become a patron of the show with a one-time gift or ideally a modest ongoing contribution over at plantyourself.com. Yeah, you can make a one-time gift or ongoing contribution over at plantyourself.com. Just look on the right sidebar for the Patreon link. In garden news, we had a cookout the other day with plenty of denizens of the garden showing up to sustain us, including a bunch of yellow squash and patty pans on the grill. We had cucumber salad from some volunteers that were growing in our compost pile, and pesto pasta with fresh basil from our garden. In running news, I'm recovering. I'm pretty much recovered from the Leadville Marathon, and I'm now looking forward to a very informal, lots of loops, 52K run on the morning of my 52nd birthday at the end of July. So if you are in NC or you want to fly to NC and run with me and hang out as much or as little as you like, you can just sort of do a loop, 3 miles, 5 miles, or you can do many, many kilometers. Facebook message me or email me, hj@plantyourself.com. I'd love to see you there. That's it for this week. So as always, be well.